Good afternoon, everyone. Hi. I can see some of you have opened the camera. Hello, Miss Yerika. So nice to see you. And hi, everyone. Okay, I would like to remind you to change your name, your Zoom name, to name underscore country. So, for example, we have Yerika underscore Indonesia. So you can rename your Zoom name to name underscore country. All right. I've seen so many people have already joining us for this webinar. I would like to maybe have send you some greetings. Greetings, everyone. And my name is Antila, and I am very excited to be your host for this event. Before we begin, may I see that you put maybe share some emojis? Some emojis. Can you put some emojis? Are you ready for today's event? Yes. Oh, yes. Nice. Okay. All right. So this is actually the first collaborative webinar in Atlaz Academy from Indonesia and CED from Thailand. Allow me to briefly introduce both institutions. So Atlas Academy is an English book publisher based in Indonesia, committed to supporting teachers and students through quality learning materials. And CED is actually one of the largest publishing and book distribution companies in Thailand, with a strong presence in the education sector. And although we actually came from different countries, everyone, both Atlas and CED share the same mission, which is to improve the quality of education and provide meaningful support for both teachers and students. Okay, so first, I would like to start by expressing my heartfelt thanks to all of you for taking the time to join us today. We truly appreciate your presence and we are delighted to have you here with us. We know how busy your schedules can be, especially it's the weekdays, it's Thursday. And so it really means a lot that you have chosen to spend your time with us. And we will make this session meaningful by sharing practical insights and useful ideas that you can apply in your own context. Okay, once again, a very warm welcome to all of you. We hope you enjoy this session and find it both engaging and valuable. Okay, before we begin, I would like to go over some important information. So if you have any questions to both our speakers, you can put the questions in the Slido. So you can put this and our team will share the link in the chat box to access this link. Wait 1 second. Okay, so if you look at the chat box, everyone, so you can access this Slido. You can put your questions here by typing your questions. Any kind of questions, you can put it here. And then if you want to put your name in here, you can do that as well. If you want to stay anonymous, that's also fine. And then after that, you can send your question. And if you look through the other participants' question, and if you think, oh, I think my question is similar with this person, you can put thumbs up. You can click the thumbs up button. So that question will be at the top, at the priority of the question that can be answered by both our speakers. Okay, so that is how you can put your questions in here. Okay, and also regarding the e-certificate, you will be receiving the e-certificate by completing the attendance form that will be shared at the end of the session. So please stay tuned with us at the end to get the link and to get your certification. All right. Oh, I think the number is keep rising. Oh, it's very exciting. Okay, so welcome to all who have just joined with us today. Today's webinar will be revolving around innovative assessment for young learners. And throughout this webinar, we will be exploring the ideas of interactive and also effective assessment and discussing maybe various strategies and solutions that can help teachers overcome challenges in assessing young learners. And that's why we bring two amazing speakers who are very expert in this field. We have Dr. Michoki Thongsawai. Hello, Doctor. Yes, hi,
Good
Doctor.
afternoon.
Okay.
Yes,
Good afternoon. Are you ready for today's webinar, Doctor?
definitely.
Okay, nice. Okay, so Dr. Michaki here is the Assistant Managing Director from the Academic Development and International Business Division from C8 Public Company Limited. Okay, we're excited to hear the materials from you. See you soon, Doctor. Okay, and our second speaker is Mr. Kevin Fabian. Hello, Mr. Kevin.
Hello, Miss Santilla.
Hi, are you ready for today's webinar?
Yes, I'm so excited, especially when we have so many people like now.
Okay, nice. So Mr. Kevin is the Chief Product Officer of Atlaz Academy, and he will be exploring some of the practical tips on how to assess the young learners later. Okay, very excited to have you later on. See you soon, Mr. Kevin. All right, allow me to read out our agenda today. So we are going to first have materials from Dr. Michoki from the CED Academy team, and then there will be a Q&A after that. So I would like to remind you again to submit the Q&A in the link that I have sent. And after that, there will be a short break. And after the break, we are going to dive into Mr. Kevin's session. There will be a Q&A as well. And we will have a group photo together before closing the webinar. Okay, I would like to maybe remind you to share this moment on Instagram or Facebook or maybe to WhatsApp to your friends. And if you have Instagram, you can tag us at hi.atlas so that more teachers, more people are inspired to continue learning well. Okay, now, well, without further ado, we absolutely cannot wait to dive deeper and explore this topic together. So I would not be talking too much today. The talking will be given to the presenter. Okay, maybe we can get started. I would like to welcome our first speaker from CED team, Dr. Michoke. The time and the place is yours.
So I would love to, good afternoon for all of the teachers here, including our partner from Indonesia. And first of all, I just would like to officially introduce myself. My name is Micho, and I just working in C8 Academy or C Education Public Limited Company for almost 2 decades. And for my experience, I'm very involved in English language subjects a lot. And for C8 Academy, right now we are the distributor for Oxford University Press in Thailand. I mean, distribute ELT books, which we know that we need a materials to help us to be one of the tools to improve our learners' English proficiencies. And we also be the Cambridge Authorized Exam Center as well as the Cambridge Associate, which means we also deliver the curriculum, I mean international curriculum to the school in Thailand if they like to uplift themselves. Because in Thailand, we are based in national curriculum. I think that is very similar in Indonesia. And many of the schools there, they value the international education. And Cambridge is one of them. It's one of the popular curriculum that many school, I mean local school, using Cambridge curriculum drive into their school. And we also have the division so-called professional development education service. Therefore, we provide what I should say that all product and service that involve in the education and make sure that our learner have the good pathway. Therefore, today I would like to share what we are doing in Thailand. And I believe that many of things that we are doing and we are understanding, we are very similar in the sense we both country realize that English is a great medium languages that we cannot avoid. And we prefer to be able to communicate in English. Therefore, today we're gonna talk more about the assessment that gonna help our young learners get better in English. I think that is the great agenda. Therefore, I'm very happy to share what I'm taught right here. As you see, the purpose for us, for all of us today is we would love to explore how assessment is evolving beyond traditional frameworks. Because as the teachers, I believe that you have the purpose to teach your learners, and you also have the standard, aims to go. Therefore, we are going to how can we help them beyond traditional frameworks and standardized tests, and how approach like play-based principles and assessment for learning can transform the way we support learners. Because many times my own experience as the teachers, even I'm not the professional teachers right now, but I would love to say that one of the pathway of the teacher, how can we support our children get a good grade? That is, how can we make sure that they pass an exam? Therefore, assessment is, I would love to say that assessment is not just about measuring outcomes. It is about understanding the learning journey. And then today we look at how we can make assessment more meaningful, engaging, and supportive of learner development. Hence, I would love to encourage you to reflect on your own experiences with assessment as we go along. Think about what has worked, what challenges you have faced, and how these ideas might apply in your own classroom or institutions or your own experience. With that in mind, let us dive in and start by looking at the current landscape of assessment and why we need to move beyond summative approaches. I think right now I talk to the professional teachers. Therefore, lots of you have a lot of experience and know the meaning of the assessment like formative or other kind of assessment. Therefore, I would love to start with this question. When you think of assessment, what is the first feeling or image that comes to mind? Just help to type into the chat box. Let me get some idea from you guys. When you think of assessment, what is the first feeling? Good and cherubic. That's right. Definitely. Some say that assessment is scary. Yes, sometimes it is. Stress, score, test or evidence. Exam, paper-based, measure the level. Indeed, I think that is an idea, lovely idea. Therefore, I can say that for our feeling, for our feedback here, we have to think about the type of the assessment that we are talking. Therefore, the feeling that we reflect and feedback for this forum, I think most of the teachers concerned about the result of the assessment, right? You would love to let our learner get a good grade. You would like to have the assessment that makes sure that they are they can they can pass well. However, the situation of the assessment that meant here is like, is this stressful? Is this very traditional in that way? Therefore, today I would love to share more about what we are talking about. So let's get start by looking at the current landscape of the assessment. Yeah, I believe when you share me about your feeling or your first thought, here is another question for us. When we hear the word assessment, which of these two images usually comes to mind? Left or right? Help me please. Left or right? The left one. Left. So we got the water here. Left, or some say right. Therefore, I would love to say that uh, when they come into our feeling, I think if you got the gut of this is the first feeling, most of us might saying that it is a left picture, which is we are in the exam room, right? Under the invigilator and quite stressful. However, I would love to say from the right picture, as you feedback us, it's less commonly chosen, which is that represent to me is it represent the formative assessment, right? It is an assessment for learning. During the classroom, when you teach in the class, you may feel that when you teach, you would like to get the feedback, ongoing feedback from your learners. Therefore, in the class, you might using the questions, you might using a lot of process to get the feedback from your student. Therefore, to get very clear mindset right here, we are going to talk about summative and formative assessment for today's agenda. And summative assessment, for both types of the assessment, I would love to say that it is play important roles and they have different purposes for us as the teachers and also the learners. But they serve very different purposes. We will explore each in more details shortly and see how shifting our focus can make assessment more meaningful for learners. I think that is the idea that we would love to share, right? In this section, we will explore two major types of assessment, what they are, when to use them, and how they shape learning outcome. Sorry. Okay. As I mentioned, summative test or summative assessment is the assessment of learning. First, we look at the assessment of learning, often referred to as summative testing. That is the type of assessment most of us are very familiar with. We're talking about the standard test designed to measure knowledge and understanding of learners. But language learning is more complex, right? When we're talking about the language learning or language learners proficiencies, we would love to get to know them about 4 skills. It's not just test the knowledge, but also how to use them. It involves multiple skills, as I mentioned. We can mention like receptive skill, like listening and reading, and productive skill like speaking and writing. The question is, how do we measure all of this fairly? That's why for Thailand, we adopt a common European framework of reference into our countries, to use their framework to be the tools of the assessment that we gonna calibrate English proficiencies for our students and teachers. we will discuss how the European Union developed CEFR to provide clear descriptor and how Thai education has gradually shifted toward competency-based assessment over the past decade. You can imagine like I cannot remember how many years ago, but at that time, European country they're gonna merge to be one Europe, right? And then they would love to calibrate their language proficiencies because they realize that a lot of people they're gonna migrate, cross over the countries. Therefore, they do a lot of research and get the framework that called CEFR, like Common European Framework, to calibrate the language proficiencies, not just the English, but also other languages. Therefore, they would like to compare if you have this kind of proficiency levels, they can move to other countries and start the education or start to work in other countries, guarantee that they have ability to communicate in those languages. And the another side we call assessment for learning or formative assessment for learning. I would love to say for learning is the formative test. Next, we will turn to the assessment for learning or formative assessment. This approach is less about grades and more about guiding the learning process. Many times when we're thinking of the assessment, we think about how can we pass with a good grade. However, assessment for learning or formative, the purpose is guiding the learning process. We will cover three key aspects here. The principle of play-based assessment, how play can create authentic opportunities for learning and feedback. Second is mapping play to CEFR competencies, showing how playful activities align with language proficiency standard. And common formative assessment, how shared tasks and rubrics can provide consistent feedback across classroom with the fairness. So by the end of this section, I hope that we will see how summative and formative assessment complement each other. Therefore, I won't say that which one is better, but I would love to say that how they complement each other and how play-based principle can make assessment more meaningful and engaging for learners. Assessment of learning, as you see from my slide, for AOL refers to assessment conducted after learning has taken place. It is essentially about measuring what students have achieved at the end of the learning cycle, right? Therefore, AOL is summative in the nature. It focuses on outcome rather than the process, and it provides evidence of the achievement that can be used for reporting, certification, or accountability. Therefore, when I was young, right, my parents might not care about how do I learn, how did I learn in the school, but she would love to see my grade report. What kind of grade A, B, C, D, or F that I got. The parents will not ask about the process, but as the teachers, we would love to know and how can we improve the process to support our student or our learner getting a better grade or good grade. Therefore, from this picture, what do you think? I think as the educator, you see a lot of times for this picture. In the left-hand side, our education system, I don't mean Thailand, I mean in general, our education, you take a look for these two images. Both are critical of standardized testing, right? And they highlight the challenge of one size fit for all approach. For the left, you will see like animals and three cartoon. On the left, you will see the other thing is what do you see? Bird, monkey, a penguin, an elephant, a goldfish, seal, a dog. They are all asked to take the same exam. Climb that tree. Whatever you be, you have to climb that tree. The message is here. Why the test is the same. The ability and context of the learner are really different. Standardized tests often assume fairness by uniformity, but in reality, it can be like very disadvantaged those whose strengths don't align with the test format. Therefore, I would love to say that as the learner, even I take the English proficiency, I would love to pick and choose the standardized test which have the format that I love and I'm familiar with. And for the right hand side, we can see a classroom scene, right? Most students are quietly taking the test, but one student is thinking, why should an unusual guy like me be given a standardized test? This reflects how learners who think differently or who have unique talents may feel excluded or misunderstood by standardized measure. This is the things that can happen. Standardized testing is valuable for accountability and benchmarking, including certificate, because that is the way that we rule the education. But it doesn't always capture creativity or collaboration or deeper understanding. It just tells us what students know at a certain point, but not how they learn or how they apply knowledge in the real world or real context. I think this is like a debate issues. What is the best? Therefore, I think you have more clear picture that we are not able to say which is the best. Therefore, what challenge do young learners face when taking standardized tests? Now, let us pause a while and reflect on this question. Think about your own student or even your own experience. What comes to your mind? Please help me to drop your ideas in the chat box. Then we will share a few ideas together. Just welcome all of us share each other. I think this section is quite language barrier, comprehension level. They are not able to remember or content straight through the environment. Therefore, from our feedback, from the group feedback here, some of the challenges we often hear include test anxiety, right? Limited attention span because of the young learner, difficulty understanding the format of the test, because if they are not familiar, that is one of the barrier. For language learning, the challenge can be even greater. Tests may not reflect their true ability because they measure isolated skills rather than authentic communications. And it's about the way that we teach them as well. Because when we teach them for English, many schools, they just separate the skill. They do not holistic. They do not, they do not focus on how to use the languages, but they focus how can their learner get the better grade. And of course, standardized tests don't always account for difference in background, learning style, or creativity, as I mentioned. And as the teachers, I think all of us know that we have the challenges in assessing receptive and productive skill, right? So here is the big questions. What are the challenges in developing and assessing receptive skill, reading and listening? Because I have a chance to read the questions that some of the teachers put into the forum earlier, talking about can you guide us or share us about the how to teach reading as the trick. Therefore, we see that the receptive skill like reading and listening and the productive skill like speaking and writing, which one is the effective way? Let us look at this from both the student perspective and teacher perspective. I start from the student first. As the student, they might often face what I call is unengaging content. Conventional materials can feel dry or repetitive, or which make it difficult for learners to stay motivated. The second, many learners lack confidence in speaking because our own culture as well. Pronunciation and fluency are common struggling, and this can hold them back from communicating effectively. Even they know a lot, they understand, but they cannot express. For the third, the mastering grammar and vocabulary is a major hurdle or barrier. Complex rules and the challenge of expanding vocabulary can slow down progress in both receptive and productive skill. Because we do not use English as the first language and we do not speak English at home, that is one of the challenge. For teachers, on the teacher side, the challenges are just as real. Assessment tasks can be very time consuming, right? You have to manual grading, you have to do lesson planning, then you have to tracking performance or add to the workload, not just teaching, but also other things. Resources are often fragmented. Teachers may need to juggle multiple platforms for book, ebook, video, or assessment, which is inefficient and frustrating for the teachers. Finally, there are limited insight into student progress. Without actionable data, it is difficult to identify learning gaps and provide targeted support. Therefore, we just do on our way, on our own way. Therefore, this challenge raises an important question. How do we create a fair, consistent way to assess all four skills: reading, listening, speaking, and writing, while we recognizing the complexity of language learning? I think this is exactly why the European Union developed CEFR framework. Besides the reason that they're gonna combine to be one European, which provide clear descriptor and standardized level of the proficiencies. Let's take a closer look at how CFR address for these challenges. Before I move forward to other slide, I would like to give like how familiar are you with CEFR levels? And which level do you most often work with? Just think about CAFR. Do we have an idea? Do we used to go through the descriptor, or do we have real understand the meaning, what it is? Because for me, to make them short, CAFR is like can do statement. What the learner can do, or what we can talk, what we can express, or what we can negotiate. Because when I talking about the CEFR level test, I would love to to start from the reason behind, the rationale behind. The reason I'm like for CFR, it is not just about the levels, but also about the competencies. Knowing which level we work with most often help us connect the framework to our daily practice. As we move forward, we will look at how CEFR defines and these competencies and how it provides a common language for assessing receptive and productive skill across different contexts. Okay, and many of the participants just mentioned a lot of A1 to B1, A1, A2, B1, B2. Therefore, I will go into detail later to share about Thailand cases. However, if you take a look for this table, I can say that how we have the CFR alignment table. The chart show how CFR level map across different testing system. And you can see that I map with Cambridge exam, IELTS, TOEFL, Pearson PTE. I would love to say that the test that I'm mapping here, I would love to say that some of them did not uh, create the test up on the CEFR framework, but because of the need that they try to calibrate their score. For example, TOEFL, TOEIC, they try to calibrate their score. That score, how do they equivalent with the CEFR in each levels. However, the test that they decide by the CEFR framework, I would love to say that Cambridge test, they design up on CEFR framework. And for Atlaz Academy, so far what I know, they design the test or the assessment by using CEFR framework. I say like this because they have two things that different. When we are being the test writer or we are build the test bank, if we start from very beginner, like we have a clear framework of the descriptor of CEFR, therefore we can write the exam questions rely on the framework, right? However, if we create the test earlier and we do not use the same framework, the things that we can do is we try to calibrate the score by using the same candidate to take for two tests and try to get the score aligned. Therefore, that is the things that is different. For example, if you mention about TOEFL and TOEIC, right? If you are very familiar, I hope, because my generation, I'm very familiar with TOEFL. TOEFL is more on the academic test. They test the knowledge. They do not test how can we communicate in English, right? Or even TOEIC, they test more for the vocabulary. And the purposes for the TOEIC is they would love to screen the employees into the company, into the corporations at that time. Therefore, the test design, they're going to be like multiple choices. That is the things that is very different for each purpose of the test. Therefore, CFR levels are required to, for Thailand, I would love to say that we are using CEFR framework to calibrate. And our Ministry of Education adopt CFR, I think almost 20 years. And when we start from CEFR, I would love to say that we start with the baseline placement test. Our government, they have the project using the placement test to test for both students and teachers and gather those information and have the decision by using that data to decide which level or which grade level should achieve English proficiencies in which level, like A1, A2, B1, B2. And this slide I'm gonna show you. This is the Ministry of Education decided for my country. You will see that when I mention general English program, it is the national curriculum. Our Thai education system, I have to say that we have 6+6. For the primary, we start from primary 1 to primary 6, and then move to secondary 1 to high school, means secondary 6. Therefore, for the beginning, P1, we expected our students have some English. Therefore, we start with the P1. And then for primary 6, before they're moving to Mathayom or secondary 1, they're supposed to have English proficiency at least A1. And then for Mathayom 3 or grade 9, they're supposed to have A2. And they should graduate from grade 12 or Mathayom 6 with B1. However, in education system in Thailand, beside the national curriculum, we also have the special classroom that school using English as the medium. They teach other subjects like mathematics, science, social study, or other subjects in English, but follow national curriculum. For those schools, we expected they have more practice in English. Therefore, when they are going to graduate primary 6, they're supposed to have A2 for the student, and Mathayom 3 for B1, and Mathayom 6 or grade 12 for B2. That is how we calibrate and how is the Ministry of Education in Thailand. They decided this is the standard that school need to develop the learner or student to get into that level. And the another slide I would like to share the another program we call international program, because right now in Thailand, in one school, they might have a national program, intensive English program, and international program. For example, international program, they might adopt Cambridge curriculum or Excel or even Oxford curriculum into their school. Therefore, you might see that P1 to P6, they expect the student have, after they graduated, supposed to have A2. And for international program, you're supposed to study in international curriculum. Then you may need to prepare yourself for IGCSE AS level for British curriculum. Then you're supposed to finish with C1 at the English proficiencies, and that is for student. However, at the bottom of this table, you will see maybe it's really small character. However, I think you might interest if you would like to come to Thailand, being a teacher in international program. This is the teacher qualification that set by Minister of Education. You can have the degree like bachelor degree. However, if your NS is mean native speaker, for native, our government we granted need not to prove about the English languages. But if you are non-native speaker, they will take a look like CEFR C1 level, and C1 if you calibrate for IELTS supposed to like 7.5 if I'm not wrong, is about that. And if you are not graduated in Faculty of Education, we also welcome for any bachelor degree in other faculty, but you have to have this kind of training program to make sure that you have the ability to be the teachers. And for This side, right hand side, this is the qualification for the secondary teachers. Therefore, you will see the picture, right? In Thailand, we are using CEFR to be framework and to set the standard for both student and teachers. This slide, I would like to share you about what we do under CED Academy. As I mentioned, GEP is General English Program or National Curriculum. When we're talking about the standard as A2, therefore, what kind of assessment or test that we can pick and choose? Therefore, when we talk to the school, I can say that first, it really depends on the purposes of the test, as we discussed earlier. Second, it really depends on the budget of the school. For us, we offer them like using Oxford placement test or young learner placement test from Oxford. It is computer-based, adaptive. Or Oxford placement test, the same. It is adaptive, computer-based. If the school is ready for this format, means you can go out from the paper-based. Then you can use the computer room in your school, and you have to make sure that the computer bandwidth, the Wi-Fi is stable enough. Therefore, we recommend them. For this kind of things, for Oxford placement tests, they're just calibrated for two-dimension use of English and listening. Therefore, they use computer to check, and the score will report immediately after you finish the test. However, we also develop with our partner, we have our own test called CED Academy test. This one we recommend for the lower secondary upward. Therefore, like student age 13, 14 upward. It is 4-skill test for CED Academies. We have 4-skill, computer-based, using AI, and for the writing and speaking, we're using the expert, the professor to check and report the score. And for international English program means using national curriculum and teach in English or using English language as the media. Therefore, this is the things that we recommend besides of a placement test or our own test, say the academy test. We also share them a lot about Cambridge, starter, mover, flyer, and I believe a lot of teachers that come from international school, you are very familiar with starter, mover, flyer, pet from Cambridge. And for international program or the school that using international program, this is the test that we recommend them. Therefore, for CED Academy as the distributor or as the education service provider, we also have an opportunity to recommend the tools for the teachers or for the school pick and choose to use in their school. I think to be fair, we have to give you some information. I won't talk a lot about this because personally, I will look, but I will not 100% believe them. But at least we got some idea and benchmarking, and I would love to clarify more how do they correct the data. That is the another things, and you can see that from 2015 up to 2024, the ranking of us for both of us, we are not good in English proficiencies, and we are going to find out how can we fix it. Then I think perhaps it's time to think outside the box and move beyond our current practice. I can say that we already have the framework, right? I believe Indonesia, we are use the same things. like CEFR framework, we have competency-based standardized tests that align to CEFR. These tests tell us what students know and what they can do according to the criteria or the rubric. And the challenge here is the issue. They don't tell us how students learn, right? They tell us about the achievement, what is their level. So how do we know if the learner process itself is effective? How can we get the feedback? How can we know that the way that we teach is right way? And maybe test results reflect this indirectly, but they don't give us the full practice. Sometimes I would love to convince you to think the critical questions in your mind. Are we focusing too much on scores and ignoring everything else? Just score, just pass the test, get a grade A. Have you heard students say they hate English? Is it really that the language they dislike, or is it that the learning process doesn't suit them? Myself, when I was young and I studied, I don't like English, but I like the teachers who teach me because they look very modern, they look very fashionable. And if you get like a female teachers, she will look outstanding from other teachers. That is my feeling when I was young. Made you think like, why can't we make learning fun and as a student based on how they learn? All of us know, right? Young learners, they love to play. Or if we make learning enjoyable through play, we can also assess them authentically while they are playing. This leads us directly into two key ideas. The first is play-based principle. And we can use formative assessment, or we can say that assessment for learning. Therefore, our focus will no longer be just on grade and score. Instead, we will emphasize student development and the learning process. By providing feedback, we help learners improve and progress on their own. In the end, every learner should be responsible for their own learning. A lot of people talking about personalized learning. A lot of us talking about how can we make learner happy, how we can make them more fun. Therefore, the another kind of assessment that I mentioned here is assessment for learning, or some of us we call formative assessment, which is refer the assessment that carry out during the learning process. Unlike the summative test, right? We also just the final test, and we would like to get a good score, get a good grade, get the certificate. Therefore, for AFR is the formative in nature. It is continuous and integrated into teaching. It focuses on the process rather than just the outcome. And it encourages learners to be actively involved and reflect on their own progress. I think there are, to me, AFL or assessment for learning is have very clear objective, like it guides teaching strategy and lesson planning. It helps learner understand their strength and area for improvement. It fosters motivation, engagement, and self-regulation. Can you just think out loud, like what kind of assessment we can do, what kind of activities we can do to get the result of the AFL? We might think about the classroom questioning and discussions, short quizzes, or check for understanding, or peer and self-assessment activities, teacher feedback, or the practice tasks. Therefore, they're more on the active learning, they're more on engagement, student engagement. Very clear, the strength is it is promote deeper learning and skill development, right? Build learner confidence and autonomy, and support personalized instruction tailored to individual needs. Therefore, it's one of the tools that we can help us to understand the learner and design to support them individually. However, there are some challenge. AFL can be very time consuming for teachers to implement consistently, and it requires clear criteria and effective feedback practice to be truly impactful. You have to be very clear for the criteria. So AFL shift our focus from grade to growth. Next, we will explore how this approach connects with play-based principle and how it can be mapped to CFR competencies to make assessment more engaging and meaningful. Just questions for your thinking first. If you had to assess speaking skills through play, what kind of activity would you choose? You can share me with the typing into the chat box, right? And I think this is the things that we share in the chat box. I would love to share you as well. And this is one of the sample from Cambridge English test, key for school. Do you think playing computer games is boring? It is a question to question the student and let them feedback. And for this is more, okay. I think many of you have a chance to experience with the Cambridge test. That is more, to me, is more reality to assess the student about their ability to communicate, and we can see how do they feedback or how do they express. Do you like these different hobbies? Therefore, they need to think and answer us, right? My traditional test is more on multiple choice, true or false, which is not able to grade or feedback the ability or real ability of the learners. Now, instead of treating this as a stressful or boring exam exercise, imagine preparing students through play. We could put students in pair doing role playing, as you mentioned in the chat box, conversation about hobbies, using picture card in a game, or even classroom competitions where students describe activities they enjoy. So by embedding these tasks into playful activities, students practice the same skill, speaking, expressing opinions, comparing ideas, but in the relaxed environment, engaging. So this is reduce anxiety and builds confidence. Therefore, I think we are run out of the time, right? I just would like to script some slide, but I would like to share you some good resources that can help and support the teachers. This is one of the another sample from Cambridge as well, but in B1 level. In B1, the learner need to be able to express their feeling, their critical thinking and feedback and express. However, if we have to make our learner or student familiar with this kind of environment, we can use the materials to help them to prepare. For example, this one we would love to get the feedback, like a formative feedback from our learners. Many activity we encourage students to interact and communicate with their peers. This gives the student the opportunity to practice their speaking skill and the teachers the opportunity to observe and provide feedback. It also familiarize students with similar tasks on the CFR level exams. Therefore, if we can create some materials, you can see that the material can help teachers a lot during the class. In the right-hand side, you will see what I am calling is grammar in context. Grammar can be reinforced in a fun and easy to understanding way by learning it in reading context. My generation, when I study grammar, I study like a math formula. For example, the sentence is equal to subject plus verb plus object, like that. And I just remember, I don't know how to use it. Therefore, this is the way that we can apply. For the play-based, we have seen how play can support assessment in practice. Now let us step back and look at the bigger picture. What are the principles of play and why do they matter for assessment for learning? The idea is learning through play foster curiosity, creativity, and problem solving. It encourages active participation and give learner ownership of their learning journey. Play also provide natural opportunities for teachers to observe, give feedback, and embedded formative assessment seamlessly into the activity. Even sometimes it is very time consuming, but I believe it's value enough for us to get to know our learners and help them. The key principle that we can highlight here, the first one is explore. Learners discover concepts through hands-on activities. The second is engage. Play motivate learner to stay involved and invested. Collaborate. Social play builds communication and teamwork skill. And the last one, reflect. Play creates moment for learners to think about their actions and outcome. Therefore, it's really benefit, right, to support and develop your learner. This is where the connection to AFL become clear. Play generate authentic evidence of learning progress. Teacher can observe skill, behavior, and understanding in real time. Feedback during play helps learner adjust strategies and deepen their learning. I would love to say that in another word, AFL thrives in play-based context because assessment is embedded in the activity. It is not something separate or added later. If we just think out loud, like it is a circle, play, observe, feedback, assessment, play, observe, feedback, assessment. In the meantime, you can have some intervention to adjust our lesson plan, our teaching approach to support our student, right? This cycle makes assessment very natural. Therefore, next, we're going to look at how this principle can be mapped directly to CEFR competencies. I just give you a while, just a 30 seconds to go through the table here. CEFR competencies, listening, speaking, reading, writing, interaction, mediations. What is the activities and how it support learning? What you see here is a framework that takes abstract descriptor like listening, speaking, reading, and writing, interaction, and mediation, and turn them into live class experience. Because many times when we talking about CEFR is very abstract. It's quite like descriptor, but the teachers might question how. So this table show you guys that how can we transform CFR competencies from abstract descriptor into the authentic, observable behaviors. Teacher can see progress in real time and learner experience assessment as part of the activities, not the separate tests. So again, we can say that when we say play, observe, feedback, assessment, this is exactly what we mean. Play becomes the foundation for formative assessment, and CFR gives us the structure or framework to make it measurable and meaningful. This is where everything's come together as the common formative assessment. Think of it as a bridge that combines the strengths of play, assessment for learning, and standardized framework like CFR into a consistent model for classroom and programs. Therefore, common formative assessment refer to a shared set of assessment tasks designed collaboratively by educators. It is formative in nature, focused on progress, not just outcome. It is aligned with curriculum standard, administered under similar conditions for fairness, and analyzed collectively so teachers can adjust instruction in real time. I think that is the key things that as the teachers we can design. I would love to share the last part after we get to have information about the formative and summative assessment. As we come close to the end of my section, let us circle back to how all of this play, assessment for learning, and CEFR can be supported in practice. This is where our partner Atlaz LMS come into this picture. For the Atlaz LMS provide a great book feature that allow teachers to track student performance in real time. With great overviews, you can see class level result at a glance. What is the great details? You can drill down into individual quiz, assessment, and book progress. You can collect data at the same place. This means teacher can monitor reading, listening, speaking, and writing score aligned with CFR competency across units and class. When we talk about common formative assessment, Atlaz make it practical. Shared tasks can be tracked consistently, data as collected in one place, and feedback can be given quickly. This ensures fairness and comparability across groups while still supporting personalized instruction. I would love to say that this kind of tools or the learning management system help us to turn the circle that we discussed, share tasks, common data, feedback, instructional adjustment or lesson plan adjustment into the living system. It helps us empower teacher act and data, not just collected it. Otherwise, we do not do using data as it should be. So as we wrap up, I just would love to say that remember, play engage learners, AFS guide development, CFR provide structure, and Atlas RMS bring them together for maximum effectiveness in the classroom. Therefore, I would love to say it is how can we use assessment to support ourselves as the teacher and support our student as the learner to be success in learning English. I just welcome if you have any questions or would like to share anything, please feel free to share me through the chat box. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Michoke. Ooh, what a very great and comprehensive presentation. We learned about the difference between assessment of learning and assessment for learning. Um, I believe the teachers got a lot of insights from your materials today, Dr. Mitchell. So, guys, now we are moving to the Q&A session, and we've got some questions already. If you have another question, you can put it in the link that we have shared in the chat box. So now I'm going to read some of the questions that have been chosen. So this is a question for Dr. Mitchell. So how to assess student who has different level of English and how to make assessment more fun? Would you like to answer that, Dr. Mitchell?
I would love to. For the first question, how to assess the student in English, right?
Yes, who has different level of English.
The basic for the teacher is formative, means as a teacher you can observe your student in the class. Do they engage? Do they participate? And what kind of vocabulary they are using? And how do they react to our questions by create in the fun way? That is one thing. I would love to use this way for my class if I'm the teachers. The second thing is if I have a chance and I'm not the expert, I would love to pick and choose the test provider that friendly with my student. I mean, at this moment, they have a lot of tests available on website or even the computer-based test. They have a lot. As I mentioned, if you have a chance to visit young learner placement test from Oxford, you will see the picture, you will see a lot of situation. It's really fun and friendly with the student. Just we have to careful about the digital literacy bias. If your student is not good in computer or if the signal is not good, that might not be the good way. Therefore, I love to use myself as the observer formative assessment and move to standard test that they decide by the trust test provider.
That's a very good answer, Dr. Mitchell. Okay, moving to the next question. I think this is a good one. How can we balance assessment of learning and assessment for learning to our students?
I love these questions because assessment of learning, normally we do the final test to get the grade, right? Or certificate, or make sure that our student can use that result to do something else or to pass to another level or to the universities. However, for the test or assessment for learners, you can do as many times, as many as you like, or as many as you wish if you have the time, because you're gonna check the progress of your student and you can immediately design your lesson plan or personalized teaching method to support those students. My answer is, how is the balance? It really depends on your class size, really depends on your time. Many of the teachers have no chance to do assessment for learners, but I encourage you to figure out.
Thank you so much for sharing, Dr. Mitchell. And thank you so much for presenting your very insightful materials. I hope the knowledge and materials presented today is beneficial for all the teachers that come to the webinar today. Thank you very much. Okay, now before we go to the second session, let's have a quick break. We're going to have a short break for 5 minutes. You can maybe take some drink, have a drink, grab some snacks, and then we're going to go back here at 4:21. That's 5 minutes after now. Okay. 4:21, we'll start again. And if you stay with us, we have some videos for you to watch. So I will see you in the next 5 minutes.
So here, if you take a look, this is a little bit overdue.
Lahat ng colors on your book is released, so we can all buy it and read it.
So thank you very much indeed.
Some sort of news on Instagram that I read, and I think it was really insightful for me. And
Awesome. Okay, 1 for 1. 2 for 2.
We asked the students to read aloud one paragraph,
Have you simplified things for your students, for example?
deliver the paper to the students, ask them to read the story in groups.
Because our class is very talkative and then noisy, and then we believe that our students will be active.
Getting some ideas from you as well. Okay, now I'm going to
I like science fiction movies.
Visited more than 50 nationalities.
He will not ask the students to start from the ending of the story.
My students to have different perspectives.
sitting silent reading.
Because in our class we have self-taught.
In this case, we are going to ask them to prepare like one notebook.
The students really like if they're writing publish and read with others.
Write in detail how to make them not only in one sentence.
Personally, I thought there are so many techniques that I can implement in our teaching, giving us knowledge how to be a good writer, how to teach writing to our students, just how to motivate our students, to make my students love to write.
In my class, I think the most interesting feature is the animated videos, because when in the listening part, there are so many accents. Most of our students are responding to the different accents, and they find it really relatable to their experience in real life.
In my opinion, this event has been really helpful and eye-opening, especially when it comes to creative writing. It is supposed to be enjoyable, and I think from today's sessions, I get some ideas, several ideas, many even, on how to implement them to my students, especially to broaden their views.
I am so grateful because I can learn a lot of things the way I'm teaching, about how to apply the technique to teach writing, especially for my students. Writing of the day, I'm gonna use that in my class. Friday free write. Yeah, that's gonna be useful and gonna be interesting in my class. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Atlaz and Tito, for today's seminar.
Thank you, Atlaz and Kido.
Okay, welcome back to the webinar. I hope everyone is ready to start again to the next session. I hope everyone is already hydrated. I hope you got the drink and you got some snacks next to you so you can um, learn and also pay attention to what our next speaker will be presenting. Okay, so without further ado, I'd like to call our next speaker, Mr. Kevin. So Mr. Kevin will be presenting about some practical ways to assess young learners. All right, Mr. Kevin is already here. Mr. Kevin, the time is yours.
All right. Thank you so much, Miss Antilla. Okay, so hello everyone. So good to see. I think some of you I have seen previously. For those of you who haven't seen me, my name is Kevin. I will introduce myself in just a little bit. But if you are still probably taking some coffee or maybe still drinking your coffee or tea, that's fine. So my session will be pretty casual. So I think you've got most of the theory, the pedagogy from Miss Dr. Michok, right? So for my part, I think it'll be more practical, and I will be explaining more about how we Atlas provide some materials that you can use in your teaching and to pretty much implement all these theories that we have just learned today, okay? All right, please allow me to share my screen. So here you go. So my part will be more about the practical tips and tricks for the classroom. So again, but it's through play. So there is, I think, I really like how Dr. Michok made this connection between assessments and play. And I think that's what we should be heading, right? Especially when we're talking about young learners. We're talking about young learners today. So obviously there are some things that are a bit different than when, let's say, we're teaching teenagers or adults. There are some specific skills that we have to use if we want to assess effectively. And I think one of the best ways is through play. And I think that was just really, really great about everything that Dr. Michok has already explained. And it just reminds me as well of the time when I learned English back then. I think I have the same experience, if not exactly the same as Dr. Michok. I didn't like English back then because there was just a lot of grammar, right? There was like a lot of memorization, a lot of formulas, and I wasn't that kind of person. So at the time when I was learning it that way, it was so boring and I didn't feel like I was improving at all. I just thought like, oh, it's just something to get by, right? It's just something that you just need to learn. But when I met an actual, English teacher who actually knew what she or he was doing, I learned that there were so many things that I could use with English. And that's just really, really changed the whole perspective of learning English for me. So yes, probably if you see my grade book, even until now, I'm not the kind of person who's very academic that is putting a lot of effort into getting a good score. But you can tell how my English has improved a lot because I focus more on the learning process of it, not really on getting good grades. So that's why we need to discuss more about like how formative and summative assessments come to play when it comes to assessing. But I'll explain one more thing that will pretty much put everything into one whole big picture together. So it makes more sense why we need to assess students or why do we need to assess ourselves. There is that question that we need to answer. So this is a little bit about myself. So I think most of the Indonesian audience here have already known me. So my name is Kevin. But for those in Thailand, welcome to our webinar again. Thank you so much for coming. It's really nice to be with you right now in Indonesia. It's pretty rainy. Not sure how it is there in Thailand, but yeah, I think like what I want to say is what we will do here today is basically introduce how Atlas can help you as well. Because like our connection, so basically this is like Atlas and C-Ed education event. So we are working together, we are partners. So basically to distribute Atlas materials in Thailand, it will be through C-Ed Academy. So if in the later on, if you're interested, you can contact C-Ed Academy through Dr. Michok, and we have Pete there who will be helping you with all questions that you might have about the products. So this is about me. I graduated from the University of Southern California. That was a long time ago, probably almost a decade right now. And I graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration, and I am pretty much still using it, but I'm moving towards more of the educational section more than the business section. So my experiences so far, I've been the director of studies at English First, and I've been teaching English since 2018, and I've been in charge of developing teachers and academic excellence and teaching students from the age of 3 years old to adults. So until now, I'm still doing that, but more often teaching the teachers more than the students. So just a brief information about myself. And here are what we will be going over today. So first, we'll talk about assessment for young language learners. Second one, beyond the grid, moving toward holistic assessment. Number three, beyond the task, assessment task as curriculum. Beyond numbers, student-friendly appraisal. And the last one, three pillars of complex learning. So it will be very, very quick. Don't worry. So for my part, because I think most of the complex stuff was already discussed. So I will just be sharing some ideas how you can implement this in class. But I think to get us started, so we are talking about assessing young learners. So the terms young learners itself, usually I think it's debatable. People can say like maybe how about 3 years old? Is a 3-year-old kid considered a young learner? Technically, yes, but like people have different terminologies. They can call them very young learner or early young learner, or maybe how about like those in high school, those they're already teenagers. Can they still be called young learners because they're still young, right? Yes, technically speaking, basically that's the way it is. But if we want to talk about just like the term that is pretty much by the book, it's the students between 5 to 12 years old. But it doesn't mean that you can only implement this only for these ages. Obviously, let's say, what if there are kids that are 4 years old, but they're already in maybe what is it, like kindergarten, but they are almost in elementary school, or maybe they are 13 years old, but they're still in elementary school. Is that still applicable? Yes, it's fine. So these are just numbers, right? As we say it about ourselves too, right? Age is just a number. So this is the same thing. But the context, the way we put things specifically, it's based on this age range, basically. So that's why I'm not talking about adults today. I'm not talking about like very youngers today. It's basically for this. Okay, so we can take a look here. We have the picture on the very left and then the middle and the right. So the very left one, we can see that these are the young learners. You can see, right? So we have students that have very limited worldview. So you can imagine they are still even developing their first language literacy. So if you maybe are teaching in Thailand, maybe, then the kids are probably still learning about using Thai, right? Or they're still learning how to process the writing because you have like an entirely different system of writing. And Indonesia, maybe it's with the alphabets. Students are still learning alphabets, right? And that combined with learning a second language, can you imagine, right? So that's a lot of things to process. And I think that's supposed to be where we're heading with this. So we need to realize that as a young learner, they are processing a lot of things already. The second one about the scaffolding and potential. So let's say with having this development in mind, what do we do as teachers in class? So we need to assess students, right? But how do we assess students knowing that they have so many things going on? And everything that we introduce to them seems like it's something new, completely new. So that's where scaffolding comes in. So scaffolding is providing enough foundation, right? Making sure that students can make relevancies towards their life, what they've already known, so they can move on to the next step and so on. So it's the best way for you to assess students if you know that you're providing enough support for them. So back then, I remember maybe like about 20 years ago, like teachers were just very, very proud of themselves if they could probably write their own questions that were kind of unexpected, full of surprises, and kind of caught students off guard. That was something that teachers really, really were racing to do. So if we still implement that even right now, can you imagine what will happen to our students? Right? If we just think, okay, I want to provide something that's completely new. They don't know about it yet. So I think that will motivate them. Yeah, maybe it can, but again, knowing the background that they have already faced so many different things already. They're processing a lot of things, and you're introducing something that's brand new and they have zero knowledge about it. They will feel more frustrated than motivated. And that's where I think we need to change our mindset. It's no longer about racing, about introducing something that's completely new, getting them caught or off guard, or maybe you want them to learn something by discovering things on their own all the time. Maybe we need to move away from that, right? It's fine if you do it from time to time, so to spice things up in your class. But if you do it every single time that you've come to class or when you have assessment, so you want students to know, like, basically if you have an assessment, you have to be ready because you will face something that's you haven't even faced before. You will get them like always on their, what is that called? Like survival instinct mode. They are not at the learning mode there. They just want to survive and they're not ready to learn something new from you. They're not ready to be assessed by you. And everything that you get out of that is basically just all nerve and all anxiety. So the last one here, you can see the power of play. So this is where the solution comes in, right? So we know we need to provide support, but what kind of support do we provide? Yeah, we know we need to provide something relevant, but what is that relevancy? One of them is something called play, right? What is play? Play is like playing games. Play is like doing something fun, something we know the students will enjoy doing. And that is why it's called the effective filter. The anxiety becomes low if we implement this play. So if you assess using this, I guarantee that you will not just get their anxiety result or their stress result, but their actual result, what they're actually capable of doing. So this is, I think, like the basically what we will be going over today. So changing the mindset of the traditional way, the conventional way of teaching or assessing students through this very formal, it's ironic we call it formal, but formal is not formative for some reason. Then if we still are doing that, then we need to assess even ourselves. Are we doing the right thing? Are we actually getting what we need from the students? Or are we just getting things for ourselves? Because we feel better, we have provided some very crazy, brand new question set. Because we need to figure out what our goal is, right? Is our goal just for the assessments to be very good? Or it's actually to help the students to succeed in the future? All right, so let's move on to the next one. So this is something called Beyond the Grid. So we have talked about there is something called the assessment of learning and for learning. So there is this terminology called holistic assessment. So basically, it's not a brand new type of assessment. It's not. It's just basically a term to describe how you are using all these types of assessments to measure someone's actual capability. So there was a question, right, that actually Miss Antilla asked in the Q&A earlier about balancing, and Dr. Micho has already answered very well on that. And I think that's very, very much true. So for example, with formative, you can take it as many times as you want. Summative, maybe just have it like once in a while at the very end and use a trusted provider for it, right? So you don't need to spend so much time on making questions that are always going to be brand new and all that. Just use the trustworthy providers for that. And what you can focus on is on the development of the students, which is through the formative. So we will talk about how that all becomes like a whole cycle that helps the students to develop, because that's the most important part. Okay, so that's more about this. This is an example how we do it in Atlaz. So someone also mentioned in the chat box there is something called project-based learning, right? So what is project-based learning? We have already known it because we have learned it probably in the past and we have been encountering it in our lives. But I can tell you that maybe some do not actually understand how this actually comes to play when we're talking about assessment. What's the difference between a project and assessment? Can a project be a part of assessment? Can it be the assessment itself? In my opinion, yes. Why? Because when we are doing a project, for example, like this is what we do in Atlaz. we are combining all student skills. So what we teach them in class, we teach them vocabulary, grammar, reading, listening, speaking, writing all together, right? Then when we give this project at the end of the unit, maybe of one session, then we can be sure that students are utilizing every single skill they have. And that's what we want, right? We don't want students to just remember just formulas. This is a subject, this is a verb, this is an object. But then when it comes to crafting this kind of project, maybe they are struggling to even find the right words to say. And this is just an example. For example, on the left side, this is creative space. This is for our elementary level, and Atlas Zone is obviously it's harder, right? You can see there's more text. This is for the higher level, for secondary level. And this is just an example. For example, we're going traveling. Obviously, when we are talking about traveling, we talk about passports, right? We talk about all these pictures that are actually visual elements there. We talk about like some holiday items that we want to bring and what we need to prepare, itinerary, tickets, all that. So then the project is about creating your own itinerary, your own plan for your holiday, for example. So then the students will have to recall every single thing they remember, right? It's like the vocabulary, and then let's say what I need to write. So in terms of the points and all that. And then at the end, we will ask them to present in front because they have to use it when they're speaking too, right? So when you are assessing projects, make sure that you are tackling all these skills. This is what makes English or any language learning different than others. Maybe in other subjects, they don't have to do this. They don't have to say everything that they have discussed or they have planned for. Why? Because that's not actually their part of skills that are being assessed. But in English or in language, we must know that language itself is a communicative device. So if we are actually not able to present or not able to speak, to use what we actually learn in class, then we haven't actually fully activated what we learn. So that's where it comes to be very important. Okay, the next one. This is, I think, something that maybe in Thailand too, but I know a lot of Indonesian teachers are struggling with the term curriculum. And as we know, the government sets the curriculum, Mr. Kevin, and we can't really do much about it. Yes, obviously we know that, right? So what if they change the curriculum again? What if it becomes something else right now? What will happen? So that's where we have to start thinking. What is the purpose of having this curriculum in the first place? So we must know that there has to be some sort of standardization, obviously, right? Because we want to have some standard for schools in one country to make sure that they're achieving that kind of level, if they have to be at this level or whatever that is. But what's more important is that we understand what is that achievement that we need to achieve at the end. But they never actually tell you how to get there. They don't control how you are laying out your lesson plans. They don't tell you which materials to use. They just give you guidance and then you get there. So if you think of it this way, the final product, the final assessment is the summative assessment. But before you reach the summative assessment, you have all this freedom to do formative assessments. You can do at any times to make sure that when they are facing the standardized test, they are ready. But your job is not to create, oh, I'm going to create so many different summative assessments so they are ready for that one. If you're doing that, you're just teaching students how to take the test, but not to actually learn the language. And that's what you need to understand. If you want your students to succeed, then you have to think about how they can use the language as communicative device, not as something that they will have to take the test on. The test will be, think of it like supplementary. If they know how to communicate using English, if they become more fluent, if they become more accurate in using their grammar, later on, automatically, they will improve their chance of getting a high grade in their summative assessment too. So that's where we need to start thinking with this, right? With this whole curriculum. And in Atlas, as Dr. Michok has explained as well, we're using CFR-based curriculum. So which is something that is accepted globally, not just in one country. So the reason why we created our books based on this global basically standard. We want to make sure that wherever it's being used, it's acceptable, and that at least the teachers don't have to worry much about it. And I think it's the same in Thailand and Indonesia, right? Dr. Michuk also explained the teacher has to pretty much prepare for the lesson plan. You have to do administrative tasks. You have to grade the students, measure the progress. So we can all agree, I believe this is a very unifying thing, that teachers have so many things to do. So the least that we have to do, in my opinion, is worry about what to do in class because we have so many other things. So that's why our commitment at Atlas, we want to provide materials for you so you don't have to worry. So you can focus on teaching the class, not finding materials to prepare for the class. And even with administrative tasks, we want to make sure that we help you with the grading, with the lesson planning, with writing reports. So at the end of the day, we can achieve a higher result for our students. Okay, and I'll show it to you. This is one example that we provide for every single lesson in Atlas. We provide all the lesson plans. So I think this is very, very important for everybody to have. So I do have some teachers that actually argue in the past that said, Mr. Kevin, can I just come to class without having any lesson plan? Or can I just actually come and maybe just wing it? Because I already know how to teach. I've been teaching for 7 years. I've been teaching for 10 years. I know what I'm doing. So the reason why we need to have some sort of lesson plan in our class is not to actually add more work to you. It's actually to have some sort of framework. So you need to do something in your class that actually matters. Because if you don't have any plans and you come to class and you just follow the materials, let's say like you chose a book and that's it, then are you sure you're actually tackling what needs to be tackled? Or are you just ticking off boxes? I'm done with this. That's it, right? I taught my students this, so they know how to do it already. So that's the common misconception that happens when it comes to maybe not following the lesson plan. So that's why what we want to encourage, it doesn't matter if you're gonna do it exactly like this, we give out the guidance for you. So it's up to you whether you want to use it that way or not, but at least have some sort of structure in your class. So never come to class without having any plans. If you have maybe so many uncertainties, at least the very, very least that you need to remember is your objective of the lesson or your can-do statement. It doesn't matter. Let's say if you plan out, I think I'm gonna do this kind of like hot seat in class. We're gonna like try to play together. But oh, turns out I had this thing from my principal that had to do with the class, like a survey. So we're not gonna have time to do that. So yeah, let's not just do it. So don't forget that you still have an objective. The objective is maybe, for example, like this, they are able to name animal names. So at least if you don't get to do the activity, what you need to do is make sure that the students can name these animals in one way or another. Whether you show it through a presentation, you use flashcards, you just tell them a story, it doesn't matter. But never forget your objective, because that objective is what sets the student's learning journey. It's not the small details, not the activities you do in class, but it's these objectives. Think of it like this is like what is it? Like a mark for an arrow. There has to be a mark that needs to be hit, right, by the arrow. So when you hit it, that means you're successful. But if you don't even have the mark, then you just keep hitting it with an arrow, then where is this arrow heading? Probably nowhere. It can head to many places and it's not to focus. Okay. This is another thing. So beyond the numbers, so I think a lot of us are also thinking assessments. Yeah, we identify assessments with, let's say, having grades. But as Dr. Michok has explained as well, with formative assessments, you can take it as many times as you want. The students can redo it over and over again because the main point is not about the grades, right? Because formative is about making sure that students are able to use what you taught them, not to get good grades. That's for somebody. That's a different thing. But there's another thing that you need to make sure of. There's something called the student-friendly appraisal. So meaning that even though this is something that's not graded, this is something that's not too formal, that you have some sort of measurement for your students. So your students still know that, oh, I am being successful, or I still need some work to do. So it doesn't mean like you just come to class, hey, let's do something fun because this is a formative type of thing. So yeah, as long as you're doing it, we're good. There still has to be some sort of guidance for you, some rubrics, perhaps if you're doing a writing or speaking activity, but there has to be something so that the students can see whether they're making progress or not. This is just some example, right? So the students need to know their can-do statements. If let's say you have your own can-do statements, I want, let's say, the students to be able to name animal names. So then you turn it into the students' perspectives. So students can say, I can name 5 animals today, for example. As simple as that. Then the students know, like, by the end of the lesson, if they can name, okay, guys, do you remember 5 animals we learned today? Giraffe, monkey, dog, cat. Is there any sheep, for example? Then they are successful because they can name 5 things. But they need to know that you are expecting them to know these 5 things. So they are deemed successful. Okay, that's just an example. You can use also positive recording, use records that highlight gains. So let's say if students have made some successful attempts in your class, make sure you keep records of it, whether it's a picture or whatever. I used to keep what is it called, like writing a lot. So because I think teaching writing is quite challenging, right? But to me, I love challenges. So if I can get my students to be able to write, no matter how horrible it is, I will still keep records of that. And by the time, let's say during their graduation, or let's say when it comes to parent-teacher conference, then I can show that proof that there is a progress made from that. And then we can use exemplars, right? Students' samples of high quality work, then just giving them a list of abstract words in a rubric. So make sure if you're gonna be using rubric, that it's not gonna be too analytical, right? That it's being also graded for the students so they can understand what it means. Because if you, let's say, students are able to use subject plus verb plus blah, 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 blah effectively, or maybe quite frequently, and you're using that word, that kind of word, to a grade 1 student in your school, then I think they will be very much confused, right? Because they don't really understand what some of these terminologies mean, and it won't do any good to them. So I think I'm suggesting that you grade it so it becomes something that is understandable, even if you want to bring the rubrics to class. Then last, we have holistic appraisals. So basically, we allow the person making the judgment to observe the whole performance through eyes that have strong appreciation element to them. So this is another thing. For example, if we are seeing it from a different perspective, let's say I'm seeing myself as an English teacher, but then maybe Miss Antila seeing it from a science perspective, then maybe another person seeing it from mathematical perspective, then it's very important that we have our own view, that we don't follow what other people think, like this, they should be at this level, or they should be like blah, blah, blah. Even the parents sometimes feel like the students need to be at this level already. But you, as a teacher in class, you are with your students probably 90% of their life. This is something that I keep telling my teachers back then when I was still managing my teachers, that when you are teaching at school, especially, you are facing students most of your time, most of your life. The students are facing you most of your life. So you guys know each other the best and the most and the best. So then you know how to make good judgment, right? So that means you need to trust your own judgment, even though maybe there is another person or another entity saying it otherwise, because you are the only one who can see the holistic view, the whole perspective of that one being, which is your student, each of your students in your class. And don't forget to incorporate self-appraisal and peer appraisal into classroom routines as well. I will tell you how this is going to be important, but this is, I think, something that we need to start implementing, because in Asian cultures, if I may say, I think we don't do a lot of peer teaching or maybe peer reflecting, and even peer appraising. So meaning that we don't do enough encouragement as teachers for students to be learning from each other. So that's why usually in my class, in my lessons back then, I need to make sure for every interaction pattern that I had, that there had to be some sort of student to student interaction, that the class doesn't turn into just a one-way perspective. It's not just me teaching the students, students listen, or just students speaking and I listen, but students listen to each other too, because that's actually the best way to learn, right? For me, I think like when I improved my English was when I was speaking with my friends and with my host family back then, because I did not feel like it was like a class. I did not feel like it was something formal. It's just something natural. And that's the same with here, right? If the students can learn from each other, they can learn from each other's mistake, they can realize it, and they can even correct each other. But you still need to control them, right? So don't get them like be too wild and just start criticizing everything, but at least have that sort of culture that they can help each other out, they can correct each other, and they can even teach each other when one person knows better than the other, and that's pretty much fine. So even if you're going to be doing some sort of writing activity, you can have them like, okay, before you submit it to me, then maybe have your friend take a look at it and see if they can find any mistakes in it or not. Simple things like that. Or even encourage them when they're doing homework. It's fine for you to ask your friends, but you need to do it yourself first. But ask your friend maybe to proofread it for you. Then you can do the same. You can proofread for the other person, right? Things like that. And this is an example of how Atlas has our assessment. So this is actually part of our summative assessment that we put the rubrics there, and we have pretty much all the descriptor for each of the criteria that we're grading. And we're doing this since very young age. So even if, let's say, students are still in grade 1, they probably don't understand every single thing like this, right? But there is a structure that I want to show you. So we have the questions there, then we have the model answer, then we have the grading criteria in terms of the competence, lexical, grammar, and also punctuation. If you notice, this is very much similar to standardized tests when you're taking IELTS or TOEFL when you are way older, when you're an adult already. And the reason why we implement this since young age is because we need a good measurement to show what students need to do to improve their progress. A lot of times, a language like English or even any other languages in the world, we don't have that 1 + 1 = 2. That's a correct point, right? We have something very subjective because it's a language. So then by introducing these criteria, then the students actually start realizing, oh, to get a good grade, I need to have this kind of competence, this kind of lexical, blah, blah, blah. But of course, using a graded word. So not using these words. This is for the teacher. So for example, this is like asking about travel, if I'm not mistaken, right? Yeah, traveling by plane, bus, train. Then I will provide the model answer there. Then to get a 4 in competence, you have to do this. To get a 4 in lexical, you have to do this and that. So if you are using Atlas materials, this is all implemented in our AI. So we have already put it in our LMS. So everything is automatically graded. So all the teachers need to do is just check if they like it or not. If they want to change it, they can change it. But the students don't have to do anything, right? Okay, next one.
Mommy, come already?
have-
Yeah.
Oh, I think there's like a muted person.
Yeah.
Antila.
Out.
Okay. All right. So
You-
next one, I think this is about the 3 pillars of assessment for complex learning. So we talk about formative, we talk about summative. So what about the last one there? That's something that I think we haven't seen before, right? There's assessment for learning, off learning, and we can have one more just because we can. It's called S learning. So this is self-monitoring assessment. So I think before even taking a look at the text, just see the pictures, right? If you take a look at the pictures, formative assessment, what is it? It's for learning. It's something that is not graded. It's something that we can do over and over again. Think of it like how it was back then. In the ancient time, we didn't have school, right? School was probably just a few of them in the world. There wasn't even buildings, so people just learned from each other. We learn as apprentices. There was apprenticeship, right? When we are become an apprentice, for example, let's say we are learning how to become a blacksmith, Then obviously we come to our mentor. Our mentor tells us what to do. We learn. And then if we make mistakes, we get feedback constantly. We keep doing that until we can become a master, right? That's the idea of learning. So that's the idea of formative. That's why there's that year. It's a cycle that we need to keep going. And we receive feedback from our teacher, but we have a goal that this is what we're building, right? We're building a house or we're building whatever it is. So there's a feedback that's going on. Then we have the summative assessment. So let's say we finally become a master. When we do become a master, what does it mean? It means that we are qualified to take on projects on our own, that we can maybe make our own houses, we become our own architects, right? Or we can maybe become a doctor, we can perform some surgery, whatever it is. And same thing, let's say if you are a teacher, for example, if you have the certificate to become a teacher, then you can become a teacher. You can teach at school. Same thing, right? So it's the same idea even for your students right now. So then this summative assessment is making sure that you are credible to do what you need to do. It's as simple as that. Why we need this? Because if we don't have this, then how can we trust? Let's say you come to a hospital, you want to get a surgery done, maybe like Miss Antila gets her wisdom tooth taken out. And then the person who's going to do it doesn't even have any sort of certification, doesn't even have a doctor's degree, and not even a dentist. But he said, I can do it because I learned it. I watch YouTube and I've done a couple of surgery myself. Would you want that person to perform a surgery on your mouth? Probably not, right? So this is for that purpose. Then the final thing is the self-monitoring assessment. So as you become your own master, obviously you won't have your mentors all the time with you, right? Even right now, if as teachers, you can relate to this, right? As teachers, you are probably seen as the one that knows everything in your class. You don't have anybody higher than you. Your students find you like, oh, you're the very much full of wisdom. So that means there's no one to correct you. That means there's no one to tell you this is the right thing or wrong thing to do. You become your own mentor. And that's actually what we need to move our students towards at the very end. That's the purpose, the whole purpose of this assessment, so they can assess themselves. And that is, in my opinion and in my experience, how it helped me become a better English speaker myself, because it's through self-reflection and through self-assessment that I knew I need to improve my pronunciation, I need to improve my grammar, I need to improve my vocabulary, and so on. So from this whole thing, I think what I want you to take is that this assessment is for the students, right? It's not for us as the teachers, it's for the students, and we need to help them to become more independent and pretty much self-monitoring at the very end. Okay. And this is another thing that we also have in Atlas. So we have AIs for our writing and speaking. So every writing and speaking assessments will be done automatically. So this is another commitment where we actually do have right now, is we want to help teachers to reduce their time of grading. So if you use speaking and writing, automatically imagine if you have to teach or you have to grade 100 students at a time. Usually if you do it manually, it will take weeks probably, right? You have to grade one by one. But through our system, everything is automatic and it will be graded for you. You just need to sit down, relax, and just check. I like this grade. I don't like it. I want to change it. I want to change the comments. You can do that. But at least we want to help reduce that. And especially I heard from CAD that in Thailand, you get up to even 50 students in one class. So I couldn't imagine how much administrative tasks you have to do, right, with that. And how will you be able to conduct a successful speaking assessment if you have to maybe do interview with them to ask them some questions? It will be too much of a time, right, to use. So that means you need some sort of system. So this is how we can help you. And last but not least, we have the feedback generator, which is to help you. So after one, it's like a half period, half academic year, we will take out all the grades and we will analyze each of the grades that you have there, the students have. Then we will tell you what they do good and what they need to improve on. So this becomes a qualitative analysis of your students. And you can do this just in the click of a button, that easy. So you don't have to worry about, how can I make personalized feedback for 50 students in one class? And I'm teaching 3 classes, so I have 150 students. So let AI help you to do that, right? So this is already built in. All you need to do is just click a button. That's it. Okay, so I think the last bit from me is like we have taken a look at so many different assessments, right? But we're moving away, let's say, from the way we did things previously, analytical assessment. But of course, there still has to be some pros and cons for it. And I don't want to discuss every one of these. You can read it yourself. But of course, with analytical aspect, it can be easier for us to prepare because we don't have to worry about differentiation, for example, and it's sometimes can be deemed more fair, right? Because everybody is being faced with the same thing. But if you remember how Dr. Michok showed you about the animals, they had to be climb the tree. Can you imagine having an elephant climb a tree? Is that the right type of assessment for your students, for example, right? Make sure that you're providing assessments that actually are applicable and suitable to your students. And this is also with the holistic assessment. So I'm not saying that if you use my method or Dr. Michok's method, it will just be flowers and butterfly. That's not the way it works, right? Because there still has to be pros and cons. Because as I have mentioned, there might be subjectivity and vague feedback and halo effect. So you just need to worry about this a little bit. But what it means is that it doesn't mean that you shouldn't use this, but you need to anticipate so that maybe you use the best of both worlds. So that's why there's something called integrated. So you can do a little bit of analytical, a little bit of holistic, but don't stick to one too much so that you understand that you need to use all. And in Atlas, we have already implemented this in our materials. So we don't just stick by one thing and that's it, but we are adaptable. And if we need to change, we even help the teachers to analyze what's going on with their class and how to improve it and so on. Okay, all right. These are some practical tips. I don't think I have time to discuss each one of these, but if you want to take a screenshot right now, I think these are some things that you can do in your class. For example, like having exit tickets is very, very, I think, useful in your class. And also maybe to take a proficiency test, diagnostic assessment before you start teaching your class. Atlas actually gives it out to you for free. Miss Antel will type it in the chat box. It's test.hiatlas.com. Only 15 minutes for all your students, and they can take it for free, and you will get their CFR levels. And based on these CFR levels, you can actually distinguish how many students you have that are actually quite advanced, how many that actually need some more support and all that. But it's basically there to help you to manage your class better. Okay, and final bits from Atlas. So on behalf of me and Miss Antila here, this is what we want to show you. We also have some products for secondary school as well. So if you're teaching secondary school, don't worry, we have English Escalate and everything is CFR based. So we have CFR levels for each one of our books because we have the target of reaching C1 by the time they graduate from school. Why? Because I think C1 is the very bare minimum if the students want to go to good universities or to study abroad or to find good jobs because they need to get some specific scores for their IELTS. Maybe they need to get 6.5 to get scholarships. So if we aim for anything less than that, then they're not going to get to achieve that. And that's, I think, is quite sad. So at least the least that we can do for us as teachers is provide them with enough support and materials. But whatever comes next is up to them. It's up to the students, right? But at least our job as teachers, we are also facilitators. We facilitate with the best materials that actually can push them, can make their dreams happen. And this is one of the ways we can do it, is making sure that they're reaching CFR C1 by the time they graduate from school. And in our online learning, we have a lot of resources for the students and for the teachers. And something I need to disclose right now is everything is already included if you buy the book. So you don't have to purchase any additional thing or to use the AI. Is there a limit, Mr. Kevin? No, there's no limit. If you're using our system, if you've bought our book, you can use all these for free. And yeah, I think the video, Ms. Antila has already shown to you. We also have native lecture video, animated video that we make ourselves with characters. So very much interesting for students to do. And this is just an example of the Atlas English test that I told you about. If you want to take your test yourself right now, feel free to take it so you can see how it works. And just make sure you put the right age, because that age will give you the right packet. If you put in, let's say I'm 17 years old, then you're going to get the teenage packet, which is going to be easier. So this is going to be the same for your students. Make sure that your students fill in with the right age. And it's free. So make sure that you use this in your class. If you haven't, just ask them to take it on their gadget. They can use their phone, tablet, or even laptop. And we give out certificates after completing one book. So this is also for free. So basically every student, after they graduate with Atlas for 1 year, they will get certificates. And we give out this also platform, like a game platform. This is like a play-based type of assessment as well. So it's very, very much fun to use. You can try it out yourself. If you make an account, just go to teach.hiatlas.com and use it. And for maybe school principals and headmasters, mistresses, you can use Atlas Analytics System to figure out about the usage in your school. So we are very transparent. This is our commitment. So if you have already invested so much on using our LMS, we want to make sure that we give you reports that reflect how much they're actually using it, so you can feel the benefit. Because I think that's one of the things, right? We want to make sure that the students are using it to the fullest, or the teachers are using the system to the fullest, because we want to make sure that we are reaching that goal that we set earlier. And this is one way we can do it. And last but not least, we have a prediction test. So we have IELTS and we have TOEFL ITP at the moment. If you're interested, this is actually a separate thing. So you can ask CAD if you are in Thailand, or you can contact us directly in Atlas if you want to take the test. So I can promise you that the results are very much comprehensive, and we give very deep analysis of each of your skills. So you don't have to worry about that. And something that's coming this year, something we will have in collaboration with CAD by this next academic year in June, we will also do Cambridge prediction tests. So we will have the starter, mover, flyer, as well as the KET and PET B1. So yeah, keep an eye on it. We will update you once they are ready. But at the moment, what's ready is our IELTS and TOEFL ITP prediction tests. All right, I think that's pretty much it from me. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening and for attending. Most of you are still here, and I think I really appreciate that, even though in Indonesia it's still, I think, pretty gloomy and cloudy, and you used to pay attention to me. So thank you so much, and I hope that from today's session, you get to learn a lot, that you get some sort of insights on how to build more effective assessment in your class, how to change the kind of mindset and here and there. Okay, so I think I'm gonna give it back to Miss Antila. Again, thank you so much for the time.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kevin, and thank you everyone for being very engaging and very excited with what Mr. Kevin has delivered. Okay, so I'll just move directly to the Q&A session, and because of our time constraint, I'm just gonna pick one of the questions that you have asked. So many of you have put the questions in the web, but unfortunately we cannot answer them all. So I'll just pick one that maybe related to what you have already mentioned, Mr. Kevin. So there's a question related to project-based approach. Is it possible to use project-based approach with early year students, and how can we assess them from authentic activity?
Right. Thank you so much for the question. I think that's really, really fun. How we can actually do projects for early years. So if you're talking about early years, probably you're teaching kindergarten, maybe. If you're teaching elementary, I think I've already answered that in my session. But if you're teaching kindergarten, for example, I used to teach kids that were 3 years old. Okay, so imagine they're still like practically toddlers and they just come and want to have fun. But I still had to assess them for some reason, right? Because I have to report to the parents what happened and all that. And actually, projects is just the best way to do it. Why? Because you're not pushing your students to memorize. You're not pushing your students to do things like they don't like. You can decide what projects that they like. And something that I used to like to do is it was mentioned, it was through role play, but the role play wasn't done actually through real human beings. We did puppets, for example. So I practiced with the kids, with the 3-year-old, right? So imagine, let's say they're talking to a puppet. So there's like this puppet, maybe let's just call it, maybe this is Miss Auntie. So Miss Auntie will be like asking you some questions. So for example, let's say, what is your name? Then they can say like, maybe if they remember from my lesson, I am blah, 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 right? What do you like eating? I like eating grapes, blah, 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 blah. So things like that, right? And if we can capture that, whether maybe that's during a graduation or maybe that's you can record a video of that, then you can already prove that you assessed that students and that assessment was successful because they were able to do that. That's just an example. Is utilizing everything that we have already learned and make sure that you are implementing all skills, starting from vocabulary, grammar, reading, listening, speaking, and writing. So all receptive and productive skills, because that's the holistic approach of the assessment that I told you about.
Thank you so much for your answer, Mr. Kevin. Okay, I would like to remind you that to get the certificate, you will need to fill out a form, the attendance form, which will be shared at the end of the sessions. We're almost at the end, almost, that's the key. Okay, so before hosting the session, maybe I would like to somehow do a picture together with all of you. So if you can open your camera and then we can take a picture together. Maybe, Mr. Kevin, maybe you can help me with taking the pictures. Okay. All right, let's see. I will wait for 5 seconds for all of you to open the camera. Oh, I see a lot of faces from all over the world. This is exciting. All right, so I will count to 3. I will count to 3. You can put the biggest smile on your face or maybe put some, I don't know, pose. Okay. Yeah, make sure to look at the camera. 1, 2, 3. Okay, one more. 1, 2, 3.
One more.
Okay, one more. All right, one more, guys. 1, 2, 3. Well, that's a lot. A lot of one more. Okay, another one more. 1, 2, 3. All right, perfect. Okay, thank you very much. Now, we're going to share the attendance form. 1 second, I need to find it. Sorry. Okay. Please make sure to put out to write the correct email because we're going to send your certificate and the materials from today and also the recording from the email that you put in the form. So make sure to write the correct email. Okay, I've already sent the attendance form. You can click it and fill it out. And also, we would like to hear about the webinar today. So what do you think about the webinar? Maybe you can write us a Google review. Okay. Yes. All right. Oh, okay. All right. So I believe a lot of you are probably clicking the form and filling it. So I would just like to recap of what we have gotten from today's webinar. So The webinar highlighted the importance of moving beyond traditional tests and scores towards a more meaningful play-based assessment for young learners, especially. So when children learn in a fun and low-pressure environment, teachers can see their real language ability more clearly. So by connecting classroom activities to CFR goals and combining different types of assessment like formative, summative, and self-assessment, we as teachers can support students' growth step by step. So in the end, assessment should help build confidence and encourage the students to communicate and show the clear progress. So not just to measure the final results. All right, then, we hope that this webinar has provided you with useful information and strategies that you can implement in your own context, in your own classroom. And remember, if you have any additional questions or want to learn more about the topics, feel free to reach out to our team. It's either to our CAD team or Atlaz. We will be very happy to answer your questions and respond to any inquiries from you. Okay, I think that's all. Thank you again for joining us today. We really appreciate your time and we hope to see you again soon. Bye.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
everyone. Thank you, Dr. Micho. Thank you, P. Thank you, Miss Antila.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Antila.
Thank you ครับ
Kami bekerja sama dengan Atlaz khususnya untuk mata pelajaran bahasa Inggris. Dengan hadirnya Atlaz di Stella Maris BSD membuat para guru menjadi
Atlaz has been very helpful in supporting our online learning. The platform is user-friendly for students, the teachers, and also the parents. And the structured materials in it make it easy to engage the students. And Atlaz has interactive elements and also make the students keep motivated to learn.
About online learning on Atlaz, I also like that because I always use technology in my teaching, and I use Atlaz as well in online learning, especially in website 1. I use reading a lot to enhance reading skills on students, because I'm really aware that students will not like reading in a book because they think it's like kind of bored. So yeah, I use, so it's personally good for me too.
Yes, lesson plans are clear, well organized, and easy to follow. And I don't need to spend extra time to figuring out how to adapt them. And I think it's practically and engaging.
Okay, I think the lesson plan is very effective and easy to use. And as you know that in English we have 4 skills. We have listening, speaking, and reading and writing. And the lesson plan in Atlaz provide them all for the teachers.
I use lesson plan in Atlaz in everyday teaching because I find it hard to manage my time creating like lesson plan. But then when it comes to lesson plan in Atlaz, I find it helpful.
Definitely, the materials are aligned well with my teaching goals, especially in students' comprehension skill and students' vocabulary, and also the material approaches makes lesson plan more engaging.
Yeah, I think all the materials in Atlaz align with my teaching goals, especially for the skills that I already mentioned before. I always emphasize my students for practice their skills, especially for listening and speaking, because it's very useful for them after they graduate from this school.
I used to have a gamification learning in my class, and the way Atlaz helpful for me because I can conduct more information and put a lot of instruction also in my gamification learning. I think it's aligned with my teaching method.
Yes, I have noticed improvements in students' comprehension of grammar and also the vocabulary, and students seem more engaged and confident in their learning process.
I think on the Atlaz book, I already tell my students that practice more using your Atlaz book, and especially for online learning, they have LMS, and then it's very useful for them to practice their skill, reading, writing, and also listening and speaking.
Atlaz Online Learning is like a very great online platform which like combines technology and education. It makes learning so much more enjoyable. I cannot put it to word. The interactive features like the quizzes, the animations, then the topics are really well organized and structured to make even the most difficult of topics really easy to understand actually.
Atlaz helped me at building my English more properly and more fluently. So because of Atlaz, now I can speak with good vocabulary, grammar, and even verbs.
I'm very excited when I found out that these books are CEFR standard, and it is written here. And if you look at the cover, it is very modern, but if you look in the inside, there are lots of pictures that makes learning English not boring.